So, Simon, I believe maybe we could start with a history of one of the belligerents, the Teutonic Order.
Yeah, so the Teutonic Order, which is like one of the three big knight orders, if you think about it. So we of course have the Knights Templar, which are the most famous, the Knights Hospitaller, and then you have the Teutonic Order, which was essentially created during the Third Crusade. There's this founding myth of the Teutonic Order creating a hospital during the Siege of Acre to support the wounded knights. But I also always have this bit of a funny headcanon of the Germans going like, we're going to create our own knight opera with blackjack and hookers. Because they were always in these little conflicts between the Germans, which didn't really fit fully into these mostly British or French knights orders. So yeah, they separated.
I only know about I first heard about the Teutonic Knights, only thanks to Age of Empires 2. The Teutons are one of my favorite civilizations to play with. Their unique tech is worth it. But yeah, I think let's just continue.
Yeah, so they did a bit of crusading and essentially they already early on started to try to create their own state. So the first attempt was actually in Hungary, where the Hungarian king invited them to fight against the Cumans, which they did, and they already started. They went in, and in like the first year, they already started creating the first castles and defending it, and going on raid against the Cumans. But as over time, the order just started really fast asserting their independence. They tried to get the support from the Pope, which they even got to become an independent state only subordinate to the papacy. And when the Hungarian king found out, he immediately booted them out. Because, well, who wants to lose land? And the Pope was actually not really happy about that. And it caused a bit of a conflict between them. And this essentially happened in the years of 1211 to 1225, about that time. And 1 year later, they got this opportunity in the Northern Crusades. So for those who don't know, the Northern Crusades are essentially this time period when the Germans or the Swedes were also part of it, went like, well, we could fight in the Holy Land against the unbelievers, but why don't we just do it in the north of Europe, where there are still some pagan tribes?
I'm just sharing briefly. So this is just a map to show where the focus of these Northern Crusades were.
Yeah. So essentially the Teutonic Order was part of these crusades. They this time secured already before they went their legitimacy by gaining the support of the Holy Roman Emperor and the papacy again, which I have to mention was pretty impressive because the Holy Roman Emperor at the time was Frederick II, and he famously was anti-papacy and really fought constantly against them. And he essentially got the support of both, and so the Grand Master of the Order started by conquering the old Prussians, which was a Slavic tribe. And they slowly moved up, and there was a second knight order that also did conquest, which was the Livonian order. And they sort of conquered what is now Estonia, Lithuania, and sort of the northern Baltic countries. But they were later defeated in a battle, which devastated them so much that they were forced to subordinate themselves to the Teutonic Order and sort of became this semi-autonomous part of it.
So kind of like a vassal, you would say?
Not
Kind
really a
of.
vassal. It's more like, so think of it like different departments of a company, essentially.
Fair enough. It's either way you're describing it.
Yeah, and that is essentially how the Teutonic Order came into possession of these lands.
Got it. Now, I think like a bit of history, more closer to as we come up to the Battle of Grunwald on the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, because our protagonists from the Polish-Lithuanian side are of the same family, so it really adds a bit of spice, I would call it. So, just let me know if you can see the family tree.
Yep.
All right, so now the Grand Duchy of Lithuania already existed. It was, as Simon said, this entire region was completely pagan. They had their own ways of worship, which is how the Swedes and the Teutons were able to start marching here, because they are like, oh, we're still carrying out the faith's requests by fighting the unbelievers, just not in the Holy Land. Now, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, who passed away in the 1340s, was Gediminas, and the father of the house, and he had quite a few sons, and that is where we see Algirdas and Kęstutis. These are the two most important of the brothers here. He had several others, these siblings. And what he does was he divided his entire realm pretty much almost equally to all the brothers, but it leads to a civil war in which Kęstutis and Algirdas kind of team up, because Kęstutis is completely devoted to Algirdas, and they get rid of their brothers. I think some flee to the Tatars, others flee to the Muscovites. I think that was Narimantas. And Algirdas, instead of being the Duke of Lithuania, is actually crowned the king because of his passion. And he's pretty expansionist in his policy. And Lithuania does expand mostly towards the area of Ruthenia, fighting the Tatars. He also engages in several wars with the Muscovites. In 1377, he passes away. And the throne of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania goes to, at this time, known as Jogaila. Now, this is where there is some legitimacy issues, because Jogaila is the oldest son from his second marriage. But he's not the oldest son. And I believe it was Andrei who was from the first marriage, the oldest. He did try to rebel, but it did not really get far. Now, at the same time, Kęstutis, from his family, his oldest son is Vytautas. Now, these two are going to be very important names. And initially, they swear allegiance to Jogaila, especially during his early part of the reign. Now, after the rebellion in 1380, the Andrei even gets involved with the Muscovites. Now, as we just shown, one second, let me just find an image. Now, a lot of the areas where the Lithuanians and the Teutons would be fighting is around this area called Samagelia. I think that was the correct way it's pronounced. Simon, keep me honest.
It is pronounced as Samogitia.
Samogitia. And this is important for river trade and would also cut off the Teutons from the Livonian order as well. And both want to focus on different problems. So Kęstutis and Jogaila actually signed a 10-year truce with the Teutons. But Jogaila secretly goes in 1380 on his own behind Kęstutis' back, his uncle's back, and signs a treaty which kind of gives carte blanche to the Teutons to completely invade and ransack Kęstutis and Vytautas' territories. And Jogaila will promise not to intervene. And the intention was, but if he does come and help, just to keep the facade up that he is still fighting the Teutons, that would not even be considered a violation of the treaty. And one of the key things was he did try to promise to be Christianized and modernized Lithuania. And Kęstutis gets word of this deal. And during that, on the way back to Vilnius, Jogaila is captured and imprisoned. And he's supposed to swear an oath of allegiance to Kęstutis, who now becomes the Grand Duke of Lithuania. And he's given the towns of Trakai, which is one of his power bases. But Jogaila is not too pleased about that. And with the cities and fiefs still loyal to him in 1382, he raises an army and confronts Kęstutis and Vytautas near the castle of Trakai. And there is a thing where they try to avoid battle and try to settle it down with negotiations. And Vytautas and Kęstutis, the father and son, enter Jogaila's encampment for a truce, and they are promptly captured and imprisoned. They are imprisoned in Kreva Castle, where within a week of his imprisonment, Kęstutis is murdered and Vytautas escapes. And this is where the fun and entanglement starts, as Vytautas escapes to Marienburg, all the way back in Prussia, which is the capital of the Teutonic Order. And he now makes an agreement with the Teutons that he'll get baptized, convert to Christianity, just help me take back my lands. And this is how we see both kind of, set up for clashes, but it changes in 1385, where Jogaila is betrothed and is marrying Queen Jadwiga of Poland and making a union between the Polish and Lithuanian. So it's not going to be that full union that we will famously know of this entire state as the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth that comes in the late 16th century. But at this point, he does pass on the title of the Grand Duke of Lithuania to Vytautas, who is going to rule basically as a fully independent vassal in essence. And Jogaila now is baptized as a Catholic and is known as Ladislav II. And he is now the king of Poland. And now this is also significant because this has removed the religious reason for which the Teutons could wage war with Poland, Lithuania.